So I don't know where I dropped off or if you want to move on or.
We heard the Senate race, and then we all got excited, and then if you could go from there. So we wanted to get a black woman in the Senate.
Yeah, so in 2016, our first goal was to get a black woman back in the U.S. Senate because there hasn't been a black woman in the Senate since Carol Moseley Braun left in 1998. And we were thrilled that we were able to support Kamala Harris to be the senator from California. And we are now part of that decision making body where our voices had not been heard because America's 23 million black women across the country are probably one of the most underserved and represented groups in the country. We're 7% of the population, but on average, we're about 2%, 2.5% of elected leaders across the country. So there's a lot of work to do, and we work to make sure that Black women are engaged, and those who are in elected office are supported, and we know the work that they're doing on our behalf, and we try and add to their numbers to help bring strength to our voice.
That's great. That's great. I don't know if we have Candace on the line. Candace, are you able to hear us? Is there a way to include her on the voice portion?
By now.
She would be the 817 number. 817. Can we pull 817-793 in? Candace can hear me. At this juncture, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce um, Sarah. We're having some technical difficulties. Is there a way you can pull Candace in from the phone participants at the 817 number? Is there a way to do that? It's 817. Candace, can you confirm your phone number? Sorry for the technical difficulties all. We want to make sure we get our participants on. Candace?
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes.
We have Candace in. All right. Thank you all for your patience. We really appreciate it. So Candace is on the line, and
Sorry, it sounds like you're getting that or have a framework for a particular webinar this I'm so sorry, everybody. The joy of national partnerships across the lots of different connections. So just as a reboot start, we are Ignite National, and we're so excited to have this with we have a couple hashtags. Hashtag DW webinar, hashtag Black Women. Yeah, as well. Sorry, Margot. Thank you much.
very good. Candace, you said you can hear us? Candace?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to introduce
Can you hear me?
And yes, very loudly and perfectly. I'm going to take a moment to introduce you. Okay, Candace was elected to the DeSoto City Council, which is a suburb right out of Dallas, Texas, in May of 2016. One of the guiding reasons, and she can talk more about this, is the reason why she wanted to run. She wanted the next generation to be continued with a real voice to shape the future of her city. She's from my home state, Missouri, from St. Louis. She has a bachelor's in personnel psychology from Missouri Western State University and a master's in managerial leadership in HR. She has worked with major companies like Deloitte. She is an active member of Delta Sigma Theta. She's a co-founder and board member of Golden Circle, which encourages African American leadership. And she has won numerous awards, and I can't even begin to go through the plethora of awards, but some ones to highlight are 2014 Dallas Business Journal's Top 40 Under 40 honoree and Leadership Dallas graduate. And she also was part of the 2012 White House Projects Go Run Lead graduate. So we're super excited to have Candace being here in the Dallas-Fort Worth community. She is a real leader and star, and so we're very fortunate to have her today. So, with that said, Candace, does anything that Kimberly said resonate with you? She basically talked about the importance of encouraging more Black elected officials, but let's hear specifically about why you wanted to run and why it was important to you.
Yeah, so thank you guys for having this, and I'm excited about women who are wanting to run for office. It is just not enough of us, and I'm thankful for having you guys for having this platform. So, like she said, I wanted to run because there was I didn't see a voice on the city council for people in my generation. So most of my council members are retired, and they're making decisions about the school district, they're making decisions about the city, the future of the city, without any input from the people who will be in the city, the kids of the people who will be in that city. So I've always kind of been active, seen what's going on in the community. I used to be a part of the Urban League and Delta, so I knew, there was a space for activism, but I definitely didn't see myself running for city council. I had a 18-month-old at the time. My husband is super supportive, but I doubted myself every step of the way, like women do. And I said, well, if I get it, then I got it, and I try. And if I don't, then okay, I'll just go back to doing what I was doing before. So I did win my first race with 66% of the vote. Definitely ran an aggressive campaign, meaning I knocked on close to 5,000. I can get my 2,500 people to come out and support a local election. So, that's a little bit about me.
Very good, very good. Well, it's good to hear firsthand some of the thoughts that go through people's mind, and it's really important that you underscore that you were afraid and you knew that there was a chance that you could lose, but you overcame that fear, you went for it, and we really talk with a lot of women about that should not stop you. Fear should not be your deterrent. Kimberly, what are the most pressing barriers you think Black women face with regard to political participation and leadership at the moment? What do you think are some of the key barriers right now? We can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself. So I would say the biggest barrier to Black women engaging in the process is really just understanding how to get involved and knowing ins, whether it is, well, I don't know where to register to vote, or they moved my poll site to, I don't know who my elected leaders are, or I've been involved in the process, but I don't know what the next step is to run. So I think that is probably the biggest thing that we're hearing as we travel across the country and talk to women about why they think we aren't at decision-making tables or not involved in the process. And a lot of them, regardless of where they are, whatever next step they're ready to take, they're not quite sure how to do it. So we do a lot of education about, just figuring out how to navigate the process. And I think the biggest challenge for Black women to run, well, one of the biggest challenges for Black women to run, as Candace said, you have to win that first primary of self. And if you can, tell you can run and you can win, then that's the first hurdle that you overcome. And then you can get into what are the structural barriers that exist in your community. What are the fundraising challenges? Are you going to be able to knock on enough doors? What is your messaging, etc.? But you have to first and foremost get over that primary of self, and then you can, go on and take over the world.
Right. And you make a good point that a lot of people don't know what they're doing, but you make the contacts, you ask the key questions, you do the research, and you go for it. And that, again, knowledge should not be a deterrent. Fear nor knowledge, those are all hurdles that can be overcame. And I really appreciate you outlining that. We have one more last question for both of you all, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. We want to make sure that our participants, and we have a really full list. Thank you for all of you all for being on. I see numbers from all over the country, so we can't wait to hear from you. But for both of you all, where do you think Black women today have the most opportunity to influence the political process? I think many times you hear women, 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 and really why we're having this whole piece is that there is a distinction. Back in the 1960s, women looked at white women and said, look, are you going to not only fight for women's rights, but are you going to also fight for our rights and civil rights? So this has been a long journey for women in general to understand that women of color have their own issues. So I just really want to hear from you. What are the opportunities? We talked about the barriers, but Candace, I'm going to kick it to you. What do you think are really some of the opportunities moving forward?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Oh. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I say some of the opportunities, particularly for Black women, it's a lot of times the conversation for Black women, for women of any color or race, it's about our kids, and I think at the local level is where we can really see an impact change. So if you are not a person that would like to run for office, that is perfectly fine. But there is some woman that is thinking about running for office that you could support, and she's thinking about school board, she's thinking about county commissioner, and she's thinking about city council. How can you go and support this woman? And a lot of times they say women need, you guys probably said, women need to be asked 7 times to run for office, whereas our men need about 3 times. So be the second time, be the third time. When you see that PTA mom and she's organizing all of it, she has the leadership skills to get things done, and she'd probably be great on city council. A lot of times we are organizing things at the daycare, we're organizing church, book clubs. We already have the skill set of influence and leadership. The third question I say is, can you ask for money? We're great at saying, can you support my daughter's Girl Scout troop to go to Austin? Can you support this new thing that my girls and my boys want to do? Can you support me as I run for office? So there is a woman in your backyard, and I say locally, this is where we got to start, because this is where I think, I know a lot of the Tea Party, when they started, they really cut their teeth on at the local level. You learn politics the hard way. This is personal. I see a lot of my citizens, and we're at Walmart, and I see them at the grocery store. This is personal to them because I'm making decisions about their property tax rate as one member of the city council. So I think there's a lot of potential, but we as women need to have a tighter circle of supporting each other, and there is one that is thinking about it. So at the local level, we can definitely get started on our school boards and in our city council.
And that makes a good point. No donation is too small. No volunteer is not significant. Anything you can do to contribute to a campaign, knock on doors, anything, it makes a difference, doesn't it, Candace? So at this point, let's turn it over to Kimberly Peter Allen. What are some of the opportunities as she goes out? Kimberly, can you hear us? Kimberly?
Hi, sorry, I was frozen for a second.
All right, so what are some of the opportunities?
I think there's a lot of opportunities, and Candace is absolutely right. The local level, we know that we are on the ground and we're doing the work in the community, and we work our way up the leadership ladder, and leadership starts on your block association, your community board, your one in your network. It may even be you who secretly wants to run, but nobody has said, you know what, you're a leader and I think you should do this. So talk to your network. Talk to your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, people you see at pick up and drop off with your kids about, what's happening in the community, and see who is interested in, trying to fix things, and then encourage them to step off the sidelines and seek leadership. I think one of the things that definitely came out of the 2016 election is, I think folks knew before that Black women had power, but they didn't feel it. At places like Kentucky that elected their first Black woman to the House of Representatives in almost 20 years, places like Minneapolis or Minnesota that elected a Somali refugee woman to their House of Representatives. We can, take over anything, because all issues are Black women's issues, because we're mothers, we're daughters, we're small business owners, we're veterans, we're lawyers, we're doctors, and we can speak not just about what it's like to be a person of African descent in this country, but we can also talk about what it means to try and achieve the American dream and challenges that face us and the opportunities that exist as well. And people can resonate, that message really resonates with people, and you can really move people when you talk about the issues.
So she makes some excellent points, and she touched on one piece
The issues, because it's what you've been working on.
Okay. So I think she has a pause. But what I was about to say was that voter engagement and voter turnout is very critical. We're going to now kick it to the audience so they can ask questions. Does anybody have any questions from our attendee list?
You're welcome to chat, and then we'll ask early questions for both.
Do you have any questions? All right. Well, we really thank you, everybody, for participating. Sarah's going to stay on and facilitate some more questions if anyone has any last minute. But I'm going to excuse myself. And as State Director of Texas, we have a lot of work to do here in the state of Texas. So it's a pleasure talking with you, Candace and Kimberly. And please stay on and answer any questions that may come about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot. Have a good night.
Too.
All right, everybody, can we hear me?
Yes.
Can we hear me better? Okay, I'm going to just hold it like this, and you can see the lovely California sun come on in. So, oh, hello. Oh, he's so cute. Hello. Okay, so Kimberly, I think that we can start with you here. Amy asked, are there groups out there like Emerge that are specific for Black women? Well, we've got the co-founder of Higher Heights, which is all about Black women. So, Kimberly, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, well, there is Higher Heights. We are a national organization focused on mobilizing and electing women, and we partner with a lot of organizations across the country to train and support women, in addition to connecting more Black women to others across the country. To really amplify the voice of Black women and amplify the message that there are Black women that are out there and running. So I encourage you to follow us on social media. Go to Higher Heights, the number 4, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And thank you for posting our website, Kristen Rogers. Thank you so much. So please reach out to us, follow us, and get connected with our hashtag Black Women Lead Nation, and spread the word.
And then, Candace, are there any local groups in Texas that you may have been a part of that you feel really supported you?
I can barely hear you, but I think you said are there any local groups in Texas that has training specifically for Black women? Is that the
Yes.
question?
Yep.
I do not know of any local groups specifically for Black women. I've heard there is a training at more at the county level for women that want to get into office, but that would be in women in general. So I've seen a couple people go that route.
Awesome. And then Retta Bowers asks us, what do you think are the largest barriers that women of color face? Kimberly, you want to take this one first?
Sure. I
Is it
think
Kimberly?
they're one of the biggest.
Go ahead.
You can hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I think one of the biggest barriers that is out there is, unfortunately, the structural barriers. We know from talking to Black women who are in elected office, from members of Congress to state and local electeds, that they were discouraged more times than not. And they're always told, as women, in general, we're told, oh, it's not your turn, it's so and so's turn. But when you're a Black woman, it's even more so. So I think the barriers from a structural standpoint, with parties, or because I saw someone mention in the chat box earlier that it was very difficult to get support the local party committees to run for office. And I think that is it's a challenge, but it's not something that can't be overcome. I know many women who have gone out and knocked on their own doors and pulled their own lists from the voter file and figured out how to get it done, and pulled on their network and their volunteers to really pull them over the finish line. So it's makes it harder, no doubt, but it's not an end all to the process.
Thank you, Kimberly. Candace, what do you think are the largest barriers women of color face?
I think women of color, I think our barriers are financial. We have not seen a lot of us in office, so the support that I think a white male has when he's running for office, of the introduction of people that previously supported him, and to bring along the younger candidates and say, hey, you should support her, or you should support him just like you did me. I think there's not enough of us in office doing the hand-holding for the next group that wants to run. So it seems somewhat inbred that trying to get in that circle, our mentor probably could be a really good mentor, be a white male that has occupied office, 20 to 30 years in some of these cities exclusively. They would probably be a good mentor, but how many times are we going to church with them, or working with them, or going to school to be in that network with them where they can know us as a potential candidate? And not saying it hasn't, that is purposely, it's really helped me when I ran for office, of to just have a network of, hey, we're both, we care about getting local Democrats elected. You should meet candidates. But the way that I met them was through working or through another avenue. So I think it's hard because we are not in that circle most of the time. But once we are, how do we get the next person? Because that's a lot of how fundraising is done at that level, is an introduction through another person that has access. And most of the time, well, I didn't have that access for people to write larger checks.
Yeah, Candace is absolutely right. Having that validator is critically important, and spending 15 years as a fundraiser, you just have to keep asking and asking and asking, and not be afraid to get to hear no.
Yeah, and I think, as a young woman of myself, I think that a lot of it is because there isn't the role model. Currently, there's just so many pieces that we have to dream so big and envision a world that we don't see yet. And I think that takes a tremendous amount of courage, and it takes a tremendous amount of living in this world of ambiguity and still working, 10 times harder because the obstacles are there. We know that they're there, and there's just so much for us to do. And it's just another layer when you're running for office, and all of the different pieces just get compounded. Um, we have another question from Jennifer. Are there any job training geared towards women working for Congress? Candace or Kimberly, do you know of any particular organizations that do that type of work?
Job training to work on the Hill, not that I'm aware of. As far as I know, most folks get in there and then figure it out. They probably could use some training, but as far as I know, there aren't any trainings out there.
Yeah, I think the most that I know of are like those coveted internship programs that happen during college or grad school or fellowship ones, but not necessarily a particular training program. Candace, do you know of any?
No, nothing specifically for working on the Hill, but I think the question about the training I will tell you, as a fault for me, it's so indicative of how women feel the need to be overtrained before we're ready to jump. Because I can tell you, I probably did 6 running for candidate training office programs for 6 months long, 6 weeks long, 2 weeks training. I did all of that, and I still felt like I didn't know enough. But I felt like, if my husband had went for a half a week for 2 days, he'd been like, okay, I think I got this thing. So I think for women, I will tell you that if you're listening on the call, you are more than qualified. If you balance the budget in your household, you can figure out how to campaign and run a great campaign. So the training programs that they have, at a point, I started going to them, and one of my friends on the call, Candace, she was in a program with me called Battleground Texas about turning Texas blue. And it was a point where we attended so many that we already knew the next class about messaging and about field organizing and about fundraising. And that's when I finally decided, oh, yeah, I kind of know what to do. But I still doubted myself every step of the way because, that's how women are. So just putting that out there. If you're looking for that specific thing, you probably already got it inside of you.
Yeah, and then Candace, just from one Candace to another, now that you're elected, is it exactly what you thought it would be? What has surprised you so far? So if you're on this call, you're probably already politically engaged. You already know your congressperson, your state rep. You probably already know what gerrymandering is, right? What surprises me is that outside of your wall, of your circle of friends that always talks politics, there's another 89% of the country that does not know their state rep. They're not as engaged as you are. So when a lot of times people, we need to do a better job as government officials to let them know what their government does for them. For example, if people call me and they, say, hey, this thing happened and someone was arrested and my nephew was in jail, and I say, yeah, that's the county. The county handles that. Or, there was some public safety issue at
I'm here. I can't hear you, Sarah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can't. I lost Can you hear Candace? Or both of us can't hear Candace.
No, I lost her.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go. Candace,
Okay, what's the last part you heard?
Jail. County
What was the last part you heard?
Well, county jail.
So people, so my parents or my friends, they're like, are you a congressperson? Are you going to Washington? Are you, what's going on with this? And I'm like, yeah, so that's your state rep. This person handles this. So I think as government officials, we can do a much better job of just educating people. They pay taxes into this. Your state rep wouldn't handle the tree that fell in your neighbor's yard. That'd probably be a city issue. And, you know, we have the Ebola outbreak in Dallas. That's not a city council issue. That's a county issue. So it's things like that where I got into it and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to help this and I'm going to do this. It is 15 steps until you get one thing done, and that's why government takes so long. But yeah, I'm surprised that even my own family was, you know, she does something in government, but I don't know. It's that type of thing. So I'm here to learn and then also educate the people around me as well.
And then, Kimberly, you have trained so many women too. What are some of the things that you've heard from them that they're surprised about once they get elected?
I think they are surprised at, unfortunately, how slow the process is, and how a bill becomes a law, but how much time it spends in committee, and it has to go from this committee to that committee before it's referred out, and then it has to be set on the calendar, and then once it's on the calendar, it has to age, and all of those pieces. I think some of the women that I've talked to said, how long it took to actually create change was surprising, but once they were actually able to do it, it was far more rewarding than they ever thought it would be. And the satisfaction to know that because of their efforts, they were able to make a concrete difference in someone's life, in their state or their city's life, was extremely rewarding.
Thank you. From our audience that's joined us this evening, any other last questions? Oh, hello. What is his name, Kimberly? Look at that truck. Hello.
This would be Benjamin, who should be in bed
Hello,
right about now.
Oh, yeah, I know. It was like 8:10, my dear. You're a tall child. Okay, let's take this question from Jade. Have you ever worked with other Black women who would not support the Black women empowerment in the government? And if so, how were you able to work with her? What do we think, ladies?
Okay, you said the question was, have I ever tried to work with the Black Women Empowerment and they didn't want to work with us?
Or how have you ever, I think the question's phrased, have you ever worked with another Black woman who would not support the Black women empowerment movement within the government, and how did you work with her? So I think difference in values. I hope that's right, Jade. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I've worked with Black women that have felt, it's enough of us in a certain area, or they felt the need to make sure there aren't too many. And is she like us? So I would, normally I would feel very comfortable talking to another Black woman about, oh my gosh, there's more that want to run, and how can we support her? And then I've met with, is it too many, or do we have to start counting ourselves before they see how, people don't realize how it looks until there is more than the majority, and then sometimes that can make other people uncomfortable. So I think I felt mostly a difference in generation more than anything. I think I felt, whereas young people want to get more in, be diverse, and I felt from the older generation that, that we got to, that's enough. And whether they told us that's enough or whether we felt it was enough, we got the message. And, kind of disheartening and disappointing at the same time. And I could do nothing but, go to the people that I get support from. And you get, in this role, you get a lot of shocking, disappointing things. You just go and find your corner and your circle of people that support you and support the vision you've been talking about for years. And you go and find your yes. And I can't let the the things that come with being in politics, the hard part that people say, oh, I can't do politics, that's one of those things.
Thank you. Julie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we've all come in contact with folks who say, "Oh, I have this seat, and there can't be another person at this table because it takes away from my power." Instead of thinking of it in terms of the more people who are at the table, then the more powerful we are. So it's a shift that has to happen. It's not just generational. Unfortunately, I've seen it in all generations. It's not something that I come across often, but it is something where people, they feel that they have their power, and adding another voice to that depreciates that, instead of scooting over and pulling up a folder chair.
Yeah, well, it's this larger conversation too about how do we continue to build this pipeline. And here at Ignite, we're getting to the young women at like 13 or 14 years old. Some of them are on right now, I can see. So to close out our webinar this evening, and I know it's late, it's 8:15 on the East Coast, so I want to wrap it up. But I'd love for us to close for Candace and Kimberly, if you could just share for the young women that are listening and that will watch this webinar minus my technical difficulties in the earlier, what's your advice for them, or what do you think they need to do next to get ready for their path to political leadership?
Yeah, I can go first. I would say if you are planning to have a future in politics, I'd say be knowledgeable about the area you want to be in. Be knowledgeable about if you're issue-based, if there's a particular issue that you want to push forward or be a champion for. Understand where that issue lies, and it might not be in the Senate, it might be in City Council, or it might not be on the school board. So know where your issues are mostly going to be impacted. And as for young people, just think about the resume you're making for your future in politics. So think about your resume and think about your background. Think about some of the things that we post online that could possibly be on the front page of a newspaper one day. Think about those things. I'm glad the internet wasn't around when I was in high school and in college, because I don't even know. So think about those as young women. Your future, you're building your resume. Every little small story, if you're going to make it to the big house, every small story. Think about all the things they said about President Obama, and, just the randomness of he went here and he attended here, and these rallies. He just happened to go to an apartheid rally in '93 and just started his activism. All those things are making a story for you. So be intentional and recognize where do you find yourself. If they're passionate about women and equality, that's probably, going to follow you into your 30s or in your 20s when you run for office. So if there's passion around, child protective services, understand where that issue is going to lie. And if it's going to be at the county or the state level, that's where you need to start to groom your resume for that. But also for anyone that's on the phone, which I see plenty of names, and I know these women personally, it is over time. You have over communicated and you are over prepared. It is time for you to run for office. Go and look at what seat is open, and if you have not identified a seat, you go be a precinct chair. And that's how you really learn. There's really only 3% or 5% turnout in most local elections. You can be a part of the 5%, and they really have a lot of impact on who gets elected. So I would encourage the women on the phone, let's do it. You let me know you need help, and I'll do everything I can to make sure to give you that lending ear of it's time. It's actually our time. Actually, it is our time. So this is our year, and you are well prepared. So go ahead and step out.
ending message for our group this evening?
I would say get involved wherever you can. If you're signing petitions for something, or you're organizing around something that's happening on your block, in your neighborhood, in your school, raise your voice. That is the best way to prepare, and just raise your voice and talk to as many people as you can, and get an internship early on, and just continue to learn about the process, learn about the map, learn what it is to cut turf, and learn how you can be most effective in getting your message out, and just go ahead and run, girl, run.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you so much, Candace. I appreciate, and good night, Benjamin. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I hope this was a great, very transparent and open conversation around barriers and opportunities. I appreciate your time, and this webinar will be available online with us later this week. Have a good evening. Thank you. Benjamin.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Have a good one.
Bye.